Hello guys, today we will be solving the Digital SAT Math course challenge on Khan Academy. So question 1. Daily high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit in Anchorage, Alaska, April 1st to 7, 2013. Okay, so this looks like a scatter plot or something like that. The dot plot depicts the daily high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit during the first week of April 2013 in Anchorage, Alaska. What would happen to the median? Okay, we need to find out what would happen to the median, so the middle value. If the lowest temperature, 39, was replaced with a new lowest temperature, 40. Okay, something we should understand is median depends rather than the individual values themselves. The median depends on the total number of values. And since the total number of values stays the same, so total number values stays the same, means that the median stays the same, because median depends on the number of values. So the correct answer would be C. It would remain the same. Okay, question 2. On Monday, Harry had 75% as many toys as Teddy did. On Tuesday, Harry acquired 32 more toys, and Teddy acquired 15% as many toys as he had on Monday. If Harry and Teddy now have the same number of toys, okay, how many toys did Harry have on Monday? All right, so first of all, let's set some variables. Let's say that X is the number of toys Harry on Monday. So that's the number of toys Harry had on Monday. And Y will be the number of toys Terry had on Monday. So these are our variables. So now let's follow what the question says. On Monday, so Harry had 75% as many toys as Teddy did. So basically they're saying that X, which is the number of toys Harry had, is 75% as many as Teddy had, which is Y. So that is 0.75Y. That's our first equation. On Tuesday, Harry acquired 32 more toys, which is X plus 32. And Teddy acquired 15% as many toys as he had on Monday. So on Monday, Teddy had Y. So 15% plus Y, so it will be 1.15Y. And now they're saying that these are equal, so that's the second equation. So 1.15y equals x plus 32. But from the first equation, we know that x equals to 0.75y. So let's replace it. So we will get 1.15y equals 0.75y plus 32. Now let's subtract 0.75y from both sides of the equation. 0.75y minus 0.75y. So on this side, we are going to be left with 0.4y, and this side 32. Now we need to divide both sides by 0.4, which would give us 80. So y is 80, so Terry had 80 toys on Monday, but we need to find how many Harry had. So we know that x equals to 0.75y. And from this, we can find out x equals to 0.75 multiplied by 80, which would equal, let's use the calculator. Is there a calculator on Khan Academy? Oh yeah, there is a calculator. Oh, I need to turn off the annotation first. Okay. So we need to find 0.75 multiplied by 80. So that would be 60. Okay. So our answer is 60. Should be. And yep, that's correct. Let's move on. Okay, so I think now we have a bit of trigonometry. A restaurant saves space by installing an overhead glasses rack. The rack will tilt upwards x degrees as shown in the figure, so the glasses do not slide out accidentally. The front chain is 4 centimeters shorter than the rear chain. What must be true about angle x? Okay, we need to find what is true about angle x. So, okay, we have sines and tangents. So let's see. Let's find the sine and the tangent of x. So we know so, ta, and toa. So this means that sine is, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, now let's find the sine for this x. So the sine of x would be opposite over hypotenuse. And the opposite is 4, and the hypotenuse is 46. So that's 4 over 46. And let's see if that matches anything. So actually, it matches A, as you can see, sine x 4 over 46. So let's pick A. And yeah, that's the correct answer. Let's move on. Which of the following is not a solution to the inequality? Okay, now let's find the solutions of this inequality. So the inequality we have is 4x minus 2 is less or equal to negative 20. Okay, let's add 2 to both sides. And we will have 4x is less or equal to 22. And now let's divide both sides by 4. Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that. And we're going to be left with x is less or equal to 11 over 2, which is the same thing as x is less or equal to 5.5. So we need to find an answer which suits this. So in which x is either 5.5 or less. Oh, but what we have here, oh, that's negative 20. That's not 20. Oh. So here I made a little mistake. Okay. Let's erase this really quickly. So we need to add 2. So that will be 4x. So negative 20 plus 2 is going to be negative 18. Okay. And now we can divide. So x is going to be more or less than negative 9, less or equal to negative 9 over 2, which is the same thing as x is less or equal to negative 4.5. So we need to find an answer where x is less than negative 4.5 or equal to negative 4.5. So we can see that A, B, and C are all less. And only D is more. So D is not a solution. And that's the correct answer. Let's move on. A survey was taken of the monthly rent of one-bedroom apartments in a neighborhood, and it was found that the mean monthly rent was 1,680. Okay, mean is basically the middle value. So oh no, mean is not the middle value. Median is the mid value, and mean is just the average. So we know that the average is 1,680. And the median, which is the middle, is 1,200. Which of the following situations could explain the difference between the mean and median rent prices in the neighborhood? Okay, So first of all, to solve this question, we need to understand what changes the median and what changes the mean. So what kind of changes affect them? So the mean is an average. So let's say we have a list of values, x1, x2, x3, up until x10. The mean would be the sum, so x1 plus x2 plus x3 up until x10 divided by 10. This is the mean, since it's the average. But the median would just be what value is in the middle. So since we have 10 values, let's imagine less. Let's imagine 3 values. So x1, x2, x3. To find the median, we should just find what is in the middle. And in this case, the middle is just x2. So x2 would be the median. And if we would have something like x1, x2, x3, and x4, the median would basically be the average of the two middle values. So x2 plus x3 over 2. Okay, now, so what conclusions can we make? Well, since the mean is an average, basically if one of the values would increase, like uh, let's say x10 increased by 50. This would actually increase the mean. But when it comes to the median, if x10 would increase by 50, well, the previous x10 will just be replaced with the new x10. And since the number of values is just still the same, considering that x10 wasn't the median would still be the same. So, but if the median would increase, for example, if we would have x1, x2, x3, and x4, if the value that increased would be like x1 or x4, it wouldn't actually affect the median. But if x2 increased or x3 decreased, it would affect the median because the median is calculated from these values. Okay, so now that's what we found out. And let's look at the answer choices. There are a few apartments that are much cheaper to rent than the rest. Let's see. There are a few apartments that are much cheaper to rent than the rest. Well, what would this do? So this would mean that there is an outlier. It would mean that certain apartments follow a certain trend, but some of them are like outliers. They are very, very cheap. And from what we know, outliers affect the mean. Because let's say we have like values like these 50, 60, 70, 80, and then let's say 2. 2 is an outlier. And this will drastically affect the mean, since mean is the average. So A is not the case, because A would actually mean that the mean would be lower, but in our case, the mean is high, so A is out. There are a few apartments that are much more expensive to rent than the rest. Well, this can explain it. There's an outlier, there's an extreme outlier. An extreme outlier would actually increase the mean. So let's say we have values such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 200. This is an extreme outlier, and it will actually drastically increase the mean. So B could be the right answer. Let's check C. The rent prices for one-bedroom apartments are very close to each other. Well, this just looks at the standard deviation, and it doesn't actually tell us anything about the mean and the median. The monthly rent for most one-bedroom apartments are between 1,200 and 1,680. Well, this is actually incorrect because if most of them are between 1200 and 1680, how can the mean be 1680? That's logically incorrect. So the only logical answer is B. Okay, question, I don't know. Question 6. The equation gives the volume V of a right cylinder with radius r and height h. Which of the following equations correctly gives the radius of the cylinder in terms of the cylinder's volume and height? Okay, so we should basically just rearrange for r. Okay, so what we have is V equals pi r squared h. So how can we isolate r squared? Well, the first thing that we can do is divide both sides by pi h and divide this by pi h. So it would be something like v over pi h equals pi r squared h over pi h. So pi and pi would cancel out, h and h would cancel out, and we would be left with pi v over pi h equals r squared. But we need in terms of r. So how can we cancel out the square? Well, we can take the square root. So the square root will cancel out the square, and we will be left with r equals the square root of v over pi h. So a is incorrect because v should be at the top and pi h should be at the bottom. So that immediately eliminates a and b. And now let's look at c and d. Well, this can actually trick many people if they're rushing. If you look at c, only the v is under the square root, which is incorrect because the whole fraction v over ph should be under the square root. That's why D is the correct answer. Okay, Marisa, an art gallery owner, gets 40% of the gallery's total monthly sales, S in dollars. So Marisa gets 40% of S, which is 0.4 S. Her monthly expenses for running her business are $2,500, and she hopes to make a profit of at least $1,000 per month. If profit is defined as the amount earned from sales minus monthly expenses, which of the following inequalities best describes the situation? Okay, her monthly expense is 2,500 and the profit she makes is 0.4s. So 0.4s minus the monthly expense should make her a minimum of $1,000. Minimum means more or equal to 1,000. Well, that eliminates C and D, and we're left with A and B. Well, in B, they're actually adding her monthly expense, which is incorrect. We should subtract the monthly expense. That's why A is the correct answer. Okay, what is the value of X in the figure? So we can see that EA equals to AC. That's the first observation we make. EA equals to AC. And the next observation we're making is AD equals to AB. So I'm guessing we might be dealing with some kinds of similarities. And we should remember something. Sum of angles in a triangle equals 180. So that's using that we can find this angle. So this angle would be, so let's say angle A is 180 minus 43 plus 65, which is 180 minus 108, which is 72. So this angle is 72. And by the rule of opposite angles, we know that these two are opposite angles. So this is also 72. And now we have a property of similarity, which is called side angle side. So side angle side applies when two triangles have the same two sides and the same angle between these two sides. And this applies to our triangle because this side is the same as this side. And this side is the same as this side. And the angle between these sides and the angles between these sides are also equal. So we have SAS similarity, or we can also say that these triangles are congruent, basically. Congruent means they are the same. Well, since they are the same, the angles are all the same. If this is 43, this is also 43. If this is 65, x should also be 65 degrees. So x would be 65. That's correct. Okay. Which of the following is equivalent to a plus 6c over 2a plus 6 2c? Okay. So we're dividing a fraction by a fraction. And when we do that, we basically flip the signs. So we know that a fraction divided by a fraction is a fraction multiplied by the inverse of that fraction. So this would actually equal a plus 6 over c multiplied by 2c over 2a plus 6. Okay, c and 2c should cancel out. So we're left with a plus 6 over 1 equals 2 over 2a plus 6. So that's what we have. And now what we can do, we can cross multiply. So multiply this by that and this by that maybe. But does that give us anything? Or what we can do is this. So 2a plus 6. How can we rewrite 2a plus 6? Well, we can take out the greatest common factor, which is 2, and we would be left with a plus 3. So a plus 6 over 1 is 2 over 2a plus 3. So the 2 and 2 would cancel out, and we're going to be left with a plus 6 over 1 equals 1 over a plus 3. And what would that actually give us? It would say that, basically, it's saying that a plus 6 equals 1 over a plus 3. And what can we assume from this? Let's see, we basically got rid of the c's, but I'm not sure if we can get rid of the a's. So a is saying that this whole thing equals to a plus 6 over 2a plus 3. Well, maybe that's actually the most logical answer, because so we have a plus 6, and we know that when we're dividing it by a fraction, we can just take the top fraction, like the denominator of the bottom, and then divide this whole thing by 2a plus 6. So c and c would actually cancel out, and we would have 2a plus 6 over 2a plus 3. And the 2 and 2's would cancel out, so we're left with a plus 6 over a plus 3, which makes D the correct answer. Okay. Which of the following is the graph of the system of equations? So we have x plus 2y plus 1 and 3x plus y equals 3. So let's convert them to the point, to the equation of a line, which is y equals mx plus c. So let's make these in terms of y. So the first equation, we're basically gonna subtract 1 from both sides, and then we're gonna be left with x minus 1 equals 2y. And then we will divide both sides by 2, which would give us x over 2 minus 0.5 equals y. So the first equation is y equals 0.5x minus 0.5. And let's look at the second equation. In the second equation, we can take x to the other side, so we can subtract 3x, and this would give us y equals 3 minus 3x, and this works, yeah. So the second equation is y equals 3 minus 3x, and both are in the format mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So from the first equation, we can find out that the slope is 0.5 and it crosses the y-axis at negative 0.5. So A looks good because we see a line with a slope of 0.5. If we would assume that every single square is 1 unit, and it crosses the y-axis at negative 0.5. Okay, that looks good. Let's look at the second graph. So in the second graph, we should have the y-intercept as 3. And yeah, the y-intercept is 3, and we should have the slope as negative 3. So we would have a rise of 3 and a run of negative 1. And yeah, that's the case. So A is the correct answer. Okay. If y equals 30 multiplied by 9 over 10x is graphed in the xy plane, which of the following characteristics of the graph is displayed as a constant or coefficient in the equation? Okay, so which one is displayed as a constant or coefficient? So we know that the coefficient is going to be 30, and as a constant, we also have like 9 over 10, so we should find one of them. Okay, so we know that this is a exponential graph because it's being multiplied. So we cannot say that there is a slope because when we have an exponential graph, we do not have a definite slope. Each point on the graph has a different slope, so we can eliminate A. The value y approaches as x decreases. The value y approaches as x decreases. Well, as x decreases, let's say, no, actually, y doesn't approach 30 as x decreases. Yeah, when x equals to 0, y will equal to 30. But if will decrease even more, let's say to negative 1, the y value will actually increase. It will be 10, it will be 300, like 30 multiplied by 10 divided by 9, which is more. So yeah, that's not a constant. And now we're stuck between the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, so actually, if we see, like, what is the y-intercept of a graph? The y-intercept is the point at which a graph crosses the y-axis. And this is the point, or in other words, we can say it's the point where x equals to 0. So if we plug in x equals to 0 into this equation, so y equals to 30 multiplied by 9 over 10 to the power 0. And we know that any number to the power 0 is always equal to 1. So this would just be 30 multiplied by 1, which is always going to be 30. So the constant or coefficient, which is 30, is actually the value of y when x equals to 0, which is basically the y-intercept. That's why the answer is D. Cam is making a party hat show in the shape of a cone for his birthday. The circumference of the part of his head where the hat will rest is 56 centimeters. So we're gonna be I'm thinking that we're gonna be dealing with some equations for the circumference of a circle, maybe. If the height of the hat is 25 centimeters, so this is about 25 centimeters. Which of the following is closest to the value of Cam's hat measured in closest to the volume? Oh, okay. We need to find the volume of his hat. All right, so the volume of a cone is 4 over 3 pi r cubed. So we need to find r. Okay, so pi r, wait, is that right? Oh no, this is a sphere, sorry. That is the value of the formula of a sphere. Yeah. For a cone, I believe it should be 1 over 3 pi r squared h. Yeah. It should be the area of the circumference multiplied by the height divided by 3. Okay, so this is the volume. So we need to find r. So we know that the circumference is 56 centimeters, and we know that the circumference is 2 pi r. This is 56. Let's divide both sides by 2, which would give us pi r equals to 28. And from this, we can find out that pi r is 28. Okay, and r would be 28 over pi. All right, so we know pi r is 28, and r is 28 over pi. So pi r squared would be 28 multiplied by 28 over pi, which is 28 squared over pi. Okay, now we have pi r squared, which is 28 squared over pi. So the volume is 1 over 3 pi r squared, which is 28 squared over pi, and all of that multiplied by the height, which is 25. So if we assemble all of this into a single fraction, it would be 28 squared multiplied by 25 over 3 pi. So let's go ahead and do this. So 28 squared multiplication. So we need to find 28 squared, which is 28 multiplied by 28 and then multiplied by 25. And all of this should be divided by 3 pi. So 3 pi. And oops, I think they take pi as in degrees in this case. So we need to do it in a different way. We need to do divide by 3 multiplied by 3.14. Or we could just do 9, and we're left with 2080. So B should be the correct answer. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. The plot on the NT plane shows the amount of time, T, in minutes to evacuate a group of N people from a building during a drill. Which of the following equation best models the relationship between T and N? Okay, the first thing that we should notice is that this graph is exponential, meaning that it doesn't have a fixed gradient. So the gradient at this point will be different than the gradient at this point. Okay? So first of all, we need to find the y-intercept, and it will be a constant. And from what I can see, the y-intercept, since the graph is like decreasing this way, it's like decreasing like this, the y-intercept will be somewhere here, which is less than 1. So I'd say A is eliminated because it assumes that the y-intercept is 1.57, and C is also eliminated. And why am I saying that this should be the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is basically when n, or which is the x-axis, equals to 0. And in A, if n would equal to 0, t would equal to 1.57, which is not correct because t is basically like we're trying to find t when n equals to 0. So in this case, it will just be the y-intercept. So A and C are incorrect. And now it's either B or D. And now we need to find the coefficient by which it is increasing. So A is assuming that it's increasing by 61%. And B and D is assuming that it is increasing by 0.61%. And let's see which one is actually correct. So Let's use B for a certain value. So let's take, what can we take? Let's take this value. So we can say that it is somewhere at 455, since this is 450. Let's say it's 460. So n is equal to 460. And let's say t, so since this is 9.5, let's say t is actually 9.5. Just like approximately. We don't have to be very precise. So we know that 460 is n and t is 9.5. So t is equal to 9.5 and n equals to 460. And let's try plugging it in B. So B is saying that t would equal to 0.57 multiplied by 1.61 to the power of 460. And actually, 1.61 to the power of 460 is a very, very large number. And that will definitely not equal to 9.5. So I think we can cross out B, and D is the correct answer. Okay, question 14. The graph shows the antibody production A in number of antibodies per hour H after the introduction of a vaccine. What is the maximum number of antibodies produced per hour? Per hour. The graph shows the antibody production in number of antibodies per hour. Antibody. Okay, it's just asking what is the maximum number of antibodies produced per hour. Okay, so first of all, let's find the maximum speed, antibody production per hour. Well, we can see that the maximum is somewhere here. So the maximum speed is 700. So 700 antibodies per hour. And it is done for how much? It is done for 25 hours. So it would be 700 multiplied by 25, which would give us 100 plus 350. Actually, 14,000 plus 3,500 should give us 17,500. Well, I think I'm just overcomplicating the question. It's just asking what's the maximum. I think it should be just 700 and that's it. Why am I overcomplicating? I have no idea. It's just asking straightforward. What is the maximum number of antibodies produced per hour? And here it just says 700. I think I just overcomplicated the question. Okay, so this is going to be the last question that we're going to do in part 1. And I will do part 2 where I'll solve the other 15 questions tomorrow. In a random survey of US adults, a political scientist found that 56% of the survey respondents are confident in the current administration's ability to make good foreign policy decisions. So, 56% are confident. The margin of error for this estimation is 1%. Okay, so margin of error is 1%. Based on this information, which of the following is the most appropriate conclusion? Exactly 56% of US adults are confident that 99% of foreign policy decisions made by the current administration will be good. No, margin of error is not about the number of foreign policy decisions. Margin of error is about the number of people who are confident in the current administration's ability. So the margin of error is actually about the people being surveyed. So A is incorrect. The political scientist is 99% sure that 56% of foreign policy decisions made by the current administration will be good one. No, the margin of error is not about how confident the political scientist is, as I said. The margin of error is about the people surveyed, about the results of the survey. I'm thinking, but okay, I won't be too quick to eliminate B. Most US adults believe that 55% to 57% of foreign policy decisions made by the current administration will be good ones. Political scientists found that 56% of the survey respondents are confident. Okay, so why C is incorrect? So C assumes that the margin, C assumes that 56% of the decisions will be good. But actually, 56% of the people being surveyed are confident that the decisions will be good. So C is just a logical mistake. It assumes a wrong thing. It is likely that 55% to 57% of all US adults are confident in the current administration's ability to make foreign policy decisions. Now, this is correct because a margin of error of 1% would say that 56% plus or minus 1% are confident. So this would put it in a range between 55% and 57% of US adults that are confident. So D should be the correct answer. Okay. So thanks for watching part 1 and come back for part 2.